Hello, salam and jule to all of you wonderful students. My name is Nilza and today I brought to you a very wonderful story which is a folk tale from the state of Andhra Pradesh. Now we know that Andhra Pradesh is situated in the south of India. The state is bordered by Tamil Nadu in the south, Karnataka in the west, Orissa in the north and the Bay of Bengal in the east. Telugu is the language that is spoken here. Andhra Pradesh has a rich cultural tradition of dance, music and folklore and was once ruled by many powerful dynasties. The traditional practice of kings being guided in the matters of state by wise ministers is highlighted in this story. So let me reveal the wonderful title of the story. It's called The Disbelieving King. As you can see, this is the title of the story, The Disbelieving King, and it has been written by this wonderful author, Bilqis Aladdin. So let's begin this wonderful story and see what it has in store for us. Once, long ago in India, there was a kingdom which was renowned as much for its good king as for its wise minister. It was a prosperous kingdom with wide roads on which bullock carts could travel easily and large shady trees so that travelers could rest under them when they were tired. There were plenty of fields as well, where rice and wheat were grown so the people had enough to eat. The king was a fine-looking man. He had dark, sharp eyes, an aquiline nose, and a moustache which curled up at the ends. He wore lots of jewels on his robes, rings on his fingers, and jeweled armlets. His greatest asset was, however, his minister. He was a wise and God-fearing man. He would offer prayers devoutly every morning and pray for the king and his people. Then he would say, "We shall leave the rest to God. If we ask him, he will surely advise and guide us. I know that whatever he decides for us will be good. We should leave everything in his hands." "Should we build a fort here or make another road?" the king would ask. "Do you think building a wall here will make us safe, just in case anyone decides to attack us?" The minister would think, look at the maps and plans, and then he would reply, "Yes, Your Majesty, we shall do what we think is best for us and leave the rest to God. He knows what is best for us. If we trust him, he will not let us down." The king did not really believe his minister, but he humored him and did not argue with him. The king was very fond of hunting. One day he decided to set out for the forest with his minister and a few courtiers. It had rained for some day and the dust had settled. The sun was out and it seemed to be like an ideal day for being outdoors. They were riding fast when they saw some beautiful deer. They gave the chase, and as they were nearing their quarry, a rock came sliding down the hillside. The king did not see it. Suddenly his horse reared and he was thrown to the ground. The rock fell on his left hand and he cried out in agony. The courtiers jumped off their horses at once and ran to lift up the rock. So as you can see in this image, how this king was riding on his horse and how he fell down, and this rock fell on him and it fell on his left hand and it injured him. This is the king, as you can see, and this was him riding in the forest. So the king was in great pain and he was most annoyed with his courtiers for not saving him. He was very angry with himself as well. "I have such sharp eyes," he cried. "How is it that I did not see that rock? What should I do now?" "Let us ride back quickly to the palace, Your Majesty," the minister said, "so that the physicians can attend to your thumb." They hurried back to the palace. The Veds looked at the king's thumb and they shook their heads grimly. "It has been very badly crushed," they said. "We will have to amputate it." So the king's thumb was amputated. Not only was he in great pain, but sad, angry, and annoyed with everybody and everything as well. "What will happen now?" he cried in agony. When will this heal? Oh, when will this thumb of mine be all right? It will heal soon, Your Majesty, the minister said comfortingly. It will heal soon. Yes, but I look so horrible, the king roared back. A king with no thumb? Why did this have to happen to me? Oh, he screamed with pain. God alone knows, the minister replied. Perhaps it is all for the best. All for the best? What do you mean by that? The king cried angrily. I lose my thumb and you say it is all for the best? And he dismissed the minister in rage. But the king was not happy. He walked up and down in his rooms like an angry caged tiger. Nobody dared to come near him or speak to him. Even the queen and the princes kept away. He was disturbed because he had dismissed his minister, but he did not want to call him back. He did not want to discuss the kingdom's affairs with any of his courtiers, who he felt were not clever enough. So he managed everything by himself. Some months went by and the king's thumb healed. There was no pain, but he had to get used to the idea of having a left hand without a thumb. Though every time he looked at his hand, he felt angry and sad. Then one day, he decided to go hunting again. He was well now and wanted to ride, so he set out. But this time his minister was not with him, nor did he take his courtiers along. He went all alone. As luck would have it, some fierce tribals were roaming in that area at the time and they captured the king. They took great fancy to his royal bearing, to his jewels, his grand clothes. In their own language, they told each other that this man would be the right person for their sacrifice, and they started to prepare for it. They built a fire and they hammered poles into the ground. Then they caught the king and they tied him fast to the poles. In vain did the king plead with them to spare him. He was so frightened that his teeth chattered and perspiration streamed down his face. Let me go, he begged. If you let me go, I will give you lots of jewels and money. But they would not listen. So as you can see that the king has now been caught by the tribals and they are planning to not let him go. And he's terrified. The king just wants to leave. He just wants to go home. And he even tells them that if you let me go, I will give you lots of jewels and I'll give you lots of money. So now let's move on. I shall give you whatever you ask for, he tried again. But they continued chanting and they started beating their drums. Then suddenly one of the tribesmen screamed and pointed to the king. The others stopped their chanting and beating of drums and gathered round the king to see what was wrong. The man pointed to the king's hand. He lifted it up, showing everybody the 4 fingers, frowning and shaking his head as if he was saying the king was not perfect. He had no left thumb. The men shook their heads too and untied the king. They seemed to be saying, "This man will not do. We need a human being who is physically perfect for our sacrifice." The king noticed his horse standing near a tree. He ran, he leapt onto its back and quickly made his escape. He did not stop or look behind till he reached his kingdom. When his people saw him return, they broke into tears of joy. But the king did not wait and just ran straight into the palace. He headed for his room where he fell on his knees and he thanked God for saving his life. By then his people had gathered round the palace to see him. Special prayers of thanksgiving were offered. The queen and the princess garlanded the king and welcomed him back. The king was happy and he was relieved at his narrow escape. He sent for his minister right away. "I must acknowledge my mistake," he said. "If I had not lost my thumb, I would have lost my life and would not be here today. You were right. God knows what is best for us, and it is better for us to leave things to Him." He embraced the minister and he said, "You are a good and a wise man." The king installed the minister in his old position again, and everyone was happy in the kingdom once more. I hope you liked that story, and I hope it teaches you how important God is in our lives. So take care, and I hope you all do well.